Waiting, waiting, waiting. And we're up, and let me start the music and let's see if this works. And here we go. You hear it? All right.
So you wanna be
So you want to be a cool kid hanging with the inset. We are the inset. I'm hanging out with my new friend here. Here we go. Wait for the drum roll. Coming up. Oh, here we go. Bop, 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 bop. Thank you very much. Those are my lyrics, So You Want to Be, and they are sung by and to music composed by my good friend Serge Huffman in Paris. He's a composer. I'm here today on We Dish, two saucy dame plus a really cool, well, they're all cool, but this is a really cool dude. His name is Barak E. We'll say Engel once, Engel, if you want to look him up. Barak, welcome. How are you?
I am great. Thank you, Bonnie, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Raise your volume just a tiny bit. It went down just a drop. I want
It
to live.
went probably because I was being a little kind of
You're
shy.
coy. Oh, shy. You right. Okay. Well, here on We Dish, I talk to interesting people. This show is for my dude friends. I also have a version of this. The original was We Dish, two saucy dames, plural, where I speak with women whom I know. And I've had quite a few women on that show, but this one is really forging ahead. I think Barak is my 23rd cool dude, and I've got a couple more lined up for next week. So if you, our viewers, our listeners, know any really cool dudes after you hear this one, you're welcome to contact me at bonnieradio@gmail.com. It doesn't get any easier than that. So Barak, I would really like to introduce you. Are you ready for what I'm going to say about you? Can you deal with it?
We'll find out after it's done, right?
Okay, here we go. So, you may know us well, Bonnie D and Barak E, Barak Engel too, seasoned in life, and we love what we do. From LinkedIn's halls and social's embrace, we love sharing insights in our savvy people space. Now here on We Dish, we're here to play, lightening up life in our uniquely fresh way. Welcoming Barak E, a very cool dude I'm proud to call my new friend. Here's my rhyming intro, then more details he may lend. The story of Barak E, a lifetime unchained. When Bonnie D speaks with him, she's in awe how he has sustained. Here we go. At 7 they tested, his IQ soared, a prodigy bright, yet easily bored. Gifted in name, but school was a fight, 2 terms in failure, then aced it outright. Teachers would sigh, why won't he try? A mind full of stars, yet wings wouldn't fly. The gifted class lost him, he walked his own way, to learn on his terms, not theirs, come what may. At an age when most kids played, he earned his first pay teaching computers in an unheard of way. Older kids listened, though younger was he, in the mid-'80s before tech was key. 15 first job, a coder on call. How am I doing so far, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. For 15 first job, a coder on call, yet passion ran dry. It wasn't his all. So networking beckoned and security came, a field where the thrill outshone the acclaim. The tech neon called in '89's tide, a fusion of fields, no place to hide. Software and circuits, a daunting new game, but electives were scarce, and so was acclaim. The dean pulled him close. You shame our great name. Yet something had shifted, no longer the same. His last year ignited the honor roll near, graduating B minus, his own brand of cheer. Jobs lined Barak's path, some proper, some bold. A mule, a gigolo, stories retold. Half-breed, non-soldier, he bore the disdain, but tech was his haven through struggle and pain. A door opened wrong, a career took flight, and E-Zine emerged in the gaming world's light. Sports and RPGs he edited fine. Yahoo acquired, yet poetry declined. Startups knocked, knock, knock, yet he turned them away. Fortunes were waiting, but doubt had its say. Riches foregone, but he played his own tune, a path of intention, not fortune too soon. MBA dreams, yet fate took a spin. Job offers abroad pulled him right in. San Francisco won, far from his land, an H-1B stamp, fate's firmest hand. The bubble then burst, but shifting kept pace. WebEx called next. I never had anybody need a drink in the middle. I should be taking a sip here. The bubble then burst, but shifting kept pace. WebEx called next. He secured cyberspace. Marriage, then children, his story unfurled. Security, his mark in a fast-changing world. A company was born, its roots dug deep. 2 decades strong, no promises cheap. CISO for giants, his name held weight, and still a new startup knocks at fate. Yet all roads converged in a novel well spun, decade, all choked up, decades in the waiting, a tale now begun. The crack in the crystal, its mystery tight, a life's worth of thinking set finally to right. At home he shares life with pause and with love, Mia by his side, a gift from above. 4 furry companions, a lively delight, and his kids now adult still visit at night. Barak thrives where the curious do, with laughter, rebellion, and insight all true. A mind unchained, forever he'll be, crafting his stories with wit and with glee. A man of the world with stories to tell. Barak E's a cool dude whom the title fits well. So join us for more tales that captivate as we dish with wit right out of the gate. What do you think?
You have to send this to me.
I will send you the clip of me reading it. I don't send the text. You have to get, I will be happy to do that. I'm going to finish this now. And we're here on We Dish, chatting on life's score, culture, music, food, and oh, so much more. Join us live or on demand, day or night. We won't be here, but you'll find us. That's why they invented on demand. And enjoy our dishing with shared delight. Meet us for real in our live streaming glow. Comments are welcome. Just play nice. We know who you are. We know. We Dish, two saucy dame and cool dude too. Bonnie D and Barak E, dishing on life's fun pour vous. So, how'd I do?
You you did amazing. I did.
I had a little help. I have a virtual friend named Sylvia Speed. Most people call her ChatGPT, but we're on good terms and we speak French with each other. And you sent me probably 5 lifetimes worth of bios. I appreciated that. So I poured my heart out to her and I said, Sylvia, help me write a rhyming bio for this wonderful person. And she sent me a couple of versions and I put them together, moved things around, and that's what you got. So I'm glad you liked it. Okay.
Thank you. And
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Sylvia.
You're welcome. I'll tell her you said so. She always sends me bisous bisous, and I tell you that's kisses kisses. Coucou. That means hello, Sylvia. Je suis ici. And we talk in French, and her diacritical marks and her punctuation is just wonderful in French. So here we are. It's March 7th. What? You know, tomorrow is International Women's Day. Did you know that?
I do now.
You do now. 2 years ago, or maybe it was three, time flies when I'm having fun. I was invited to be the kickoff speaker. Let me make sure we're streaming. We are. I was invited to be the kickoff speaker for a group called Women in Big Data. And they asked me to kick off International Women's Day, Barack. And I prepared a slideshow of my early days as a early woman in tech. And I showed them what a COBOL handbook looked like. I showed them what a mainframe Xerox Sigma 6 CP5 looked like. I showed them what a printout on green bar paper looked
Yeah.
like. I showed them what a key punch machine looked like. They thought I was from another planet. Do you remember those days?
Oh goodness. When I was a child, and I'm talking 5, 6 perhaps, and my mom used to, she was doing her degree, and she had to do the punch cards, right, to program the right. And I remember like carrying the box behind her, because she had to have several of them, right,
Yep.
and to go into the lab, and
Yep.
then playing with those cards later after they were no longer needed.
Yep.
Yep.
I remember I have a funny story. I think it's funny. One of the jobs I had, I got a call at around 2 in the morning from the computer operator from the operating control room, and he said, "Bonnie, we had an ab end at card number 575. What do you want me to do? This program has to run overnight." And I said, okay, let's just say he was Bob. I said, okay, Bob, give me a second. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark and I closed my eyes. I said, go back 3 cards, put 0 in on the operator's console and run it from there. I will stay awake with my eyes closed here in the dark for about 5 more minutes. If you don't call back, I'm going back up on the bed and I'm climbing under the covers and going back to sleep. He didn't call back. It ran. That's how well we knew our code. We're talking
Yep.
thousands of lines of code. Was your mom the same way?
She wasn't doing it for computers per se. It was just something, and I don't know much. I mean, I was a kid, but
Okay.
back when I was programming things, that was in the days where it wasn't even programming language per se. You were using assembler and even assembly, where you're
Hmm.
actually shifting registers and
Yep.
all, right? Most kids these days are 7 layers of abstraction from what's happening underneath.
Yep.
And yeah, it was so absolutely. I remember those days very
You
well.
remember those days. You were observing. I was
Yeah.
doing. I
Yeah.
loved programming, and people say, "Oh, it's all math." No, it's not. It's creative. They say to you,
Well,
"Go ahead, go ahead."
no, I have a great story for you actually.
Yeah, tell me your
So so
story, please.
that so so the 6502, the RISC processor for the Apple II, right? Which was a reduced instruction set, right? I mean, that's basically what a RISC processor is. And this is how I remember it. Again, this was so long ago. I hope that I'm not, my imagination is not inventing things, but I remember
It
it pretty
doesn't
clearly.
matter.
I wrote my first game, right? And it was a little guy just jumping over obstacles, running from left to right on the screen. Very, very simple stuff. And the processor then had the number of colors you could put on the screen was 32. And you ask, what's important about 32? Well, how many bits do you need in order to get to 32?
Go ahead. Five,
Five.
five.
A byte has eight. Half a byte has four. There was an entire kind of mathematical thing that you had to do in order to program it to maintain the same color for the dots as the thing kind of moved across the screen. I could never figure it out. So, in my first insight into the idea of it's not a bug, it's a feature, I just called my little game Chameleon, and because the thing kept changing colors. And to wrap that funny thing up,
I love it.
years later. I joined an internet startup, and we are talking 1994, late 94, early
Hmm.
95. And their key product, the product that allowed folks to connect to the internet, was Internet Chameleon. And for me, that was just so amusing.
Oh, that's a riot. And by the way, I think it was 94. I don't, you must remember this when AOL was sending out discs, CD hard disks in the
Yeah,
mail
I think floppies at that time.
floppies in a folder, and you would get them in the mail, and it would say, put this into the drive in your computer and sign up for AOL.
Yeah.
And around 94, if I remember correctly, I did. And I was living on North Shore of Long Island in Great Neck, Long Island, New York. And there were rather wealthy people in my building. I was the working girl, if you will. I was much younger than most people, but I wanted to stretch to live in a place like that. And I figured out how to do it. But I invited two or three of my friends. I took the train into Manhattan to work with them every day. I said, "Come in, I have something to show you." And they stood behind me at my desk. It was in the what would have been the dining room in the apartment. I turned it into an office. And I said, "Listen to this." And I started up AOL and it went, "Do, do, 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 do. You've got mail." And they said, "What just happened?" And I said, "I'm on the internet." And they said, "What's that?" It was just a riot, and I will tell you that I joined a group soon after called the Med Jokes List with lawyers and doctors. I don't know how I found them or how they found me, and I subscribed, and they sent jokes around. Not all medical and lawyer jokes. We're talking 1994, 1995, so it was different than it would have been today, Barak. Nobody was bashing much that way then. I'll leave that one alone. I printed out all of these jokes and put them in a loose leaf binder because I was doing stand-up
Yeah.
comedy and I had my own improv troupe and I wanted to use some of those jokes. I did the same with improv games. I had a whole folder. So do you remember any of that?
Oh my gosh, I have a folder with printed jokes right
No,
behind me, right,
no,
yeah, in my
no,
closet there. Absolutely.
no.
Absolutely.
I knew I liked you. By the way, who introduced us? How did I meet you? A couple months ago.
Um, it's another author.
Yeah,
Uh,
was it for one of my
yeah,
technology
one the
shows?
technology revolutions,
Yeah.
the Valentine's Day one that you did on, I think.
Okay, right. Yeah, was it the future of love and romance?
Yes,
Yeah, the
that was
future
the
of
one.
love and romance in sci-fi, not in thriller
Right.
novels. Yes. Okay, I knew I'd met you recently. If anybody's wondering what's wrong with my memory, absolutely nothing. I have four shows now, and most of them are panel conversations. So I've got between 7 and 10 guests a week, every week of the year, and I
Christina,
remembered you. I remember.
Christina, I forget her last name right now, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember. Yeah. Was it Casey Griffon?
Casey. Yes,
Griffon.
Casey
Yes.
Griffon. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. She goes by Christina with a K as well. So let's go
Mm.
to music. I'd love to know what your cool dude music is. What gets you all worked up or makes you feel cool or defines you or what do you just love? Tell me a couple songs.
Well, there's a number, and it's always kind of funny because music is of course we love music and there's so much. How do you pick something? So the stuff I picked might not be super familiar for most folks, but it certainly is impactful for me. Are you familiar? I'll start here. Are you familiar with Tom Lehrer? You must be because you're a
Of
comedian.
course, of
Okay.
course, of course, Tom Lehrer, Lehrer. And wasn't he
Yeah.
on NPR or PBS or yeah, he was on PBS, I think. Go ahead. Yeah.
Comedian from the 50s. The
Yeah,
man
yeah,
he did song comedy
yeah.
and he was absolutely brilliant. He also was a math professor at Harvard, which made it extra excellent. But and his songs, which not only have I listened to them all, I know all the lyrics because I've it's so many times, and they have this eerie thing where they're still relevant now 7 years after he wrote them. I don't want to get into the why in particular because I really don't want to deal with politics right now.
Mm-hmm.
But he was absolutely brilliant, and some of his stuff was just funny. A lot of people know the math song where he's doing addition and subtraction, or the element song. But the one that I wanted to mention is Vatican Rag, and Vatican Rag is an absolute hilarious song where he absolutely skewers the Catholic Church.
Oh,
And it is hilarious and it's super upbeat, up tempo, very funny. And if you see an actual recording of Vatican Rag, people are on the floor. And he did this in the 50s when that
wow.
was a lot more difficult and
Oh
edgy to
yeah.
do. Um,
Edgy's one word for it.
but one of the key phrases from that song that I sometimes just pull out, in the middle of a conversation, and nobody ever recognizes, don't know what I'm talking about, but is 2468 time to transubstantiate, and it's just in the song. It's fantastic.
Okay,
Um,
I will find a copy of that. What is some of the other songs? Nobody's ever done a comedian music song on this show, so I'm intrigued by that. You got any musical stuff you want to share?
I do, but that
Yeah.
that is music, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's a coming of age song that I wrote down as I was thinking about growing up. And we're talking, I was in my early teens, 12, 13, something like that. And we used to have, school dance parties. The 80s were very innocent compared to today, right?
Tell
And
me about it.
if you remember slow dancing, do you remember slow dancing?
I do. I was a professional dancer for a while, teaching hustle, Latin, and line dances, and Lindy, it was East Coast swing we called it, and my partner used to call slow dancing hug and chuck.
Yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, this was, for us at 13, that was like
Yeah,
kind of the
yeah,
discovery moment of, oh
oh
my
yeah,
God. And you would have like 2 feet between you, but it was really exciting and
yeah.
all of that.
I remember.
I had a massive, massive crush throughout middle school
Ooh,
on somebody in my class who was not interested, right? Would never happen. But the only moment when generally we would get anywhere close to each other was singing a very specific song that we somehow I would always kind of invite her for a slow dance in the party, and she would always accept, which is I Want to Know What Love Is, Foreigner.
I want to know what love is,
Yes, yeah.
right?
And I will
Sort of.
forever, yeah, that song is always kind of our song, even though she's not really part of it. But
You want
but
to do
for
a
me,
shout out to her? You want to do a shout out
oh,
to
her
her
name
first?
her name is Maya, and I mean
Hi,
she
Maya.
knows, she already knew. But yeah, it was for me it was that moment. Those were completely magical moments of a rebuffed, uh, or having a
Yes,
crush on somebody.
that's great. That's a riot. Go ahead, give me another one. This is good.
Um, I hope this is what you were hoping
Oh,
for.
it is more than you know. This is great. Go ahead.
My favorite band in history is Queen.
Hmm.
Absolutely everything they've done. The only celebrity whose death I ever truly grieved, and I remember when they announced Freddie Mercury had died, I was in college and I was sitting in my car with a good friend of mine, and we're just crying our eyes out, and it just listening to songs. But my favorite Queen song is actually not the one I think that most people name. It's Killer Queen.
Huh.
If you remember that one, it's basically a
No, I
song
don't.
about a prostitute, right? But a high class one. Like, you're beyond high class. It's like somebody who is high class, but decides to engage in that world because they think it's fun, right?
Interesting.
So it's perfectly fine.
I'm going to relate one of my songs to that in a second. Do you have a fourth one? This is very
I
interesting.
do, I do, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
always loved that song because it was a song about doing things outside, coloring outside the lines. It was
Hmm.
very much like, hey, look, I'm a high society person, but
Yep.
I also,
Eh,
engage in sex works because I want to, and it's fun for me, right? And I
I
always thought it
dabble.
was
Dabble.
yeah, I always thought it was great. Also attaches a little bit to my own biography, but that we can leave it for later.
Okay.
I'll add one last one,
Yeah.
which is a song by Meredith Brooks. It's called "Bitch,"
Okay.
and it's a song she wrote. And if you kind of read what she reads about it, what she says about it, it really is a song about being an outsider,
Hmm.
and about sort of not really comporting with everybody's expectations. And it's a song that is extremely powerful, and if you've never heard it, I really really recommend it. And I tried to sing it karaoke at my wedding, which was great. But it's the lyrics are great, and the power behind that song is fantastic. And it's about self-acceptance and being human. And it's the thing I think that I most associate with that song is how she basically takes that word, which is a derogatory word, and she strips that negative connotation out of it and owns it. She says, you know what? Kind of F you, pardon my French, right?
Hmm.
I am a bitch and I love it. And this is who I am. And it's just so, to me, that was such a powerful message.
I think I've
Uh,
thought about that from time to time when people go up against me and I want to say, yeah, I'm owning it. This is who I am. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm doing. This is what I believe. And if that's what you think, that's who I am right now. And it's okay. Thank you. Those were very interesting, provocative, the most provocative I've heard in a while. I'm going to give you mine, which are
Please.
kind of tame. I have a whole bunch. You Don't Own Me by Leslie Gore. I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, Helen Reddy. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Pat Benatar. Respect, Respect, the late wonderful Aretha Franklin. I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor. New Attitude, Patti LaBelle. Am I hitting some high spots there? Dancing Queen, ABBA. I've
Yes.
had the time of my life from Dirty Dancing. I have a song I like called Queen, Q period, U period, E period, E period, N, all caps by Janelle Monáe. And I think you'll appreciate this. The line I haven't heard the song, but I've read the lyrics. She who writes the movie owns the script and the sequel. Talk about powerful. And my life is pretty much summed up by Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Love that song.
Groovin' by the Young Rascals, and then I was teaching disco in the late 70s in Eugene, Oregon. Had a lot of students, hundreds of students, line dances and hustle, and oh, we had parties. And I taught at a senior center, and I had a class I co-taught with somebody. We had 250 students in a high school cafeteria, and they made me dance on top of a Formica table in my high heels. And I told them, "You build me a stage." I didn't know what OSHA was, but believe me, we were violating a lot of stuff. And so Donna Summer, I've also danced in disco contests to Donna Summer. So I looked at the Donna Summer discography, Barak, and this is the lineup of songs I think are perfect for me. She works hard for the money. Hot stuff. Talk about the street walkers. Well, I haven't been, but I've been called, hey, hot stuff. On the radio. I've been doing radio for what? I still call this radio for 25 years now. No More Tears. Enough is enough is enough. I can't. I think that was a duet with Streisand. It could have been. No More Tears. Last Dance. I don't dance anymore, but I did for years. I Feel Love with that machine, that synth from Giorgio Moroder in the background, and Heaven Knows from the MacArthur Park Suite. Heaven knows just how much I love you. That was the song that Michael Walker, my partner, and I danced a disco Hawaii contest to. So those are my songs. What do you think?
I love it. I love the range too, and
Thank
so much
you.
of it is recognized. You mentioned Dancing Queen, and I
Yeah.
have to. I just came back. I'm still half jet lagged. Just came back from England. I was there for a week, and I got to see this show. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but if you haven't, or if you haven't been, you have to go. It's called the ABBA Voyage,
No, I haven't
and
heard that.
somebody told me to go see it. And they literally purpose built this arena because the technology would not fit anywhere else.
Wow.
And I kid you not, and I'm from tech. I spent the first 10 minutes kind of like trying to find things about visual tearing or something, but no.
Mm-hmm.
You are sitting in an arena, in a dark arena, and you're watching ABBA on stage as they were in the 70s, but like it's not like a flat thing. It's not like a 2D screen.
Is
Literally,
it a
you're watching
hologram
them.
or it's
Yeah,
them?
essentially, it's them. And it looks completely real. It looks like actual people. There's
Wow.
nothing to give it away. And at some point, your brain just basically gives up. It says, I
Yeah.
understand that all I'm doing is watching light, but at the end of the day, it looks so real. You can reach out and touch them. That's how incredible it
Wow.
is.
Wow.
And so I highly recommend it. If you find your way to England, well, this they already renewed. I think they just renewed to 2026. But yeah, I highly
Wow.
recommend it.
Cool. Well, I have family who go to London from time to time. I'll recommend it to them because I don't get across the pond. I don't get across the pond where I'm living here either. I'm a digital recluse now. I'm a digital hermit. So you're one of my you're in my sphere now, okay? Thank
Cool.
you for that. Very, very interesting. Let's move on. Creativity superpower. Do you have one? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's good? Not so much. What do you think?
Give me yours and let me see if it inspires me.
Okay, an interesting point. Mine, I think, is my creativity superpower is always trying to find good in people I meet and trying to say something nice to them and not trying hard so it's false, but saying something pleasant to people. And the downfall is that it's sometimes to the wrong people and they end up being very inefficient in their jobs or what they do, and they fix something and it doesn't work, or they end up just not being who I thought they were. So I've never said that on this show before. I usually say my superpower is talking to people and welcoming all kinds of people on my shows. And the downfall is sometimes I misjudge people. But I think that the one for example, I had lab work done today, blood work. And the woman who did it is so efficient. You're basically in that chair for about 3.5 minutes and then you're back in the car. It's like, did I come here? Can I go home and have breakfast now? At 7:30 in the morning. And I complimented her. I told her I love the way she spelled her name was Corrine with an E-N-E instead of I-N-N-E, which is most. And I told her how adorable she was. And I said, you're the fastest blood tech person I've ever had. And when I went to the hospital a couple months ago for blood work for something else, they botched it so badly. I was in almost screaming pain for an hour and I had black and blue marks for 2 weeks. And so I just realized how I just wanted to compliment her and let her feel special. And I said, you are absolutely the best. My dad was a doctor, and I know he had to do some of this stuff. You're the best I've met in a long, long time. And she appreciated it. When I left, I said to myself, I hope I don't end up with, and there was just a dot, and there was no blood on the cotton, and she's just absolutely wonderful. And when I went into the doctor's office where the lab was being done, I said to the receptionist, you're wearing a yellow sweater. That is the color of the year, butter yellow. It's beautiful. And she looked at me like, who are you? What are you talking about my sweater? And she said, my colleague here at the other phone at the desk, at the reception desk, she gave it to me. And I said, well, you tell her what a good friend she is. And I smiled and they're wondering, who is this woman who comes and says nice things to? So that's I think one of my superpowers. What do you think? Did that inspire you?
Absolutely. I think it now gave me a whole spiel. But I love that, by the way. This is great.
Thank you.
This is absolutely wonderful.
I think you're interviewing me now. Oh, we're not allowed to
Um,
have fun. Straighten up here. No, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, please.
no, so this is actually really interesting. To kind of ease into it in a way. Are you familiar with Enneagram types? The notion of
I've
Enneagram
had
types?
some guests who've talked about those, but I'm not familiar with the details. Tell me.
I won't get too much into it, but I'm an Enneagram type 2. It's sort of a helper type. One of the key aspects of being a type 2 is that you have a lot of trouble deriving a sense of self-worth from yourself, from
Hmm.
within, and you tend to need external derived self-worth, right?
Hmm.
So there's a whole, thing around it and what's your personality type. And of course, the negative side of all this, because you always want to help people, but the negative side is or the real trick for somebody like me is what we call in a way is the type 2 vanity, which is not vanity in the way you think about it, but it's in the
Mm-hmm.
idea that you can help everybody, that you
Mm-hmm.
somehow master the strings of the world, the
Mm-hmm.
fabric of the world in order to make everybody's reality better, which of course you can't do, but that's the challenge for somebody of my personality type. The reason I bring all this up, and this is why I always, even though I recognize that by creating you are a creator, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
you're an art. I have a novel published. That's art, right? It
Yep.
is art of the
Yes.
written word, and yet I have a problem calling myself an artist because the way I view artists is the Enneagram Type 4, which is called the artist, and they do this because they just want to do this. It's the
Mm-hmm.
art itself is the goal. Whereas for me, it's the listener, it's the recipient that's the goal.
Interesting.
So that's why I bring all of this up because in as an example, when I wrote The Crack in the Crystal, the way that I created an inspiration feedback loop for myself
Mm.
is by as after a few chapters, I actually set up a public workshop that was also streamed, and there's this like sad and lonely YouTube channel where all the recordings of that are still posted that I was developing the manuscript, but it had an audience. And by having the audience and having a conversation and getting their reactions to
Yeah.
what was happening and all of that stuff, that sort of constantly gave me that charge that I needed in order to go back and continue writing and sticking to a schedule that I
Yep.
myself set, right? There's going to be another thing in 2 weeks, so I must write the next
Yep.
couple of chapters for that. It is that interaction, and it's true for my professional books too. It's true about my other writings, the columns I post. It always gets inspired by an interaction I had with others,
Mm-hmm.
where we have a conversation. It seems to light up. Folk, it's engaging. People are interested. There's a really great exchange, and that tends to inspire me to go and write, which is my form of art.
I like that. I like that. Uh, Going back to my days in tech, a lot of people, as I think I mentioned in the beginning, say, "Oh, that's you've got to be good in math to be a programmer." And I said, "No, you're creating something. You're given a blank piece of paper and a mandate to make a report happen. Data coming from somewhere is coming into a computer system, and it's going to hit the code in this program. But you're the only one in the world who will write it that way, exactly that way. It is, in a way, a work of art."
It is.
It's like a painting, it's a piece of writing. But interesting what you mentioned about the Enneagram, about needing that spark from other people. I have noticed that recently I'm doing a lot of moderating work for some big, I call them deep dive tech courses. I've been hired as a moderator for 5 week courses, 5 hours a week for 25 hours total. For many, many, they booked me for over 100 hours of courses this year. And I don't have an awful lot to do, but my interaction is important. I introduce the course, I introduce the instructor. I ask them always, you won't be surprised at this, for some fun facts about them other than their professional bio. He has 3 bikes and his homes in 3 different continents, and he had a something computer when he was 8 years old, and interesting facts about that. And I am there to negotiate the breaks and to interpret the questions in the Q&A, which is on a different browser, on a different I've got 2 screens overlaid, one with the production chat with the production team and the other with the Q&A from the people who paid for the course. And I have to read the questions to the instructor and figure out a way to interpret them, because they're not always with their quick comments people put in. Can you tell us about the scenario with the bins and the embedded warehouse management? And when do you use this code and that? I have to spot read them intelligently so that the instructor will hear what the person really meant. I have no interaction.
Oh.
Oh, so I could have a scenario that's three sentences long that I have to figure out where the commas would be, where the dashes would be, where the asides would be, so that the instructor hears it through my voice and is able to respond on the spot, which they do. And then I usually get a thank you, or I put a little smiley into the Q&A to the person who contributed. And I always call the attendees by their first name so they know I have acknowledged them. And I bring this. I don't think a lot of moderators do this. I bring this to the table. So I've created this in my own way. And I guess they like it because they keep hiring me. But my point is, when these days are done, now I'm logged on a half hour early for tech check. I have to meet with the instructor for technology check. I create a virtual background for them. I work with them. There's a lot of prep goes in. And when it's done, I walk away from my desk after, well, we got two 15-minute breaks and 5.5 hours. It was a long day yesterday. I say to myself, you were really good. You really, and some days I'll say to myself out loud, I was magnificent. I didn't used to do that, Barak. I didn't used to give myself that pat on the back. And I'm beginning to think that maybe it's a new superpower that I'm saying I'm okay. What do you think? I was turning into a psychology session here, but what do you think? Is that part of the?
That's part of the fun of this chat, right? You told me it can go anywhere,
I
right?
did. I did. Absolutely. Isn't that interesting that I'm able to give myself feedback, whether people do or not? And I say, I did a great job.
Well, first of all, congratulations on that. That is
Thank
that
you.
is not something I'm capable of doing. So,
Okay.
but I'm trying.
Okay.
Humans we are social animals.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, as much as, and this is like a Western culture versus Eastern culture thing, but we have this weird idea that all these cliches, mind over body, which is nonsense, right? At the end of the day, mind, heart, body, all of it is important in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And humans generally, sure, you have people who don't have that switch in their head. Usually we call them psychopaths. But humans thrive on social interaction because we're social animals.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and so I'm not, in a way, I think what you've found is a mechanism to drive a sense of satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
by really applying it to this it sounds incredibly stressful to be able to do this like spot translate from English to English, right? It's like I'm very fascinated by what you just described. And now I'm like, I want to think about that. But
Thank
but
you.
it
It's interesting.
right, but you've taken something like that, right? And you've used it as a sort of an engine for yourself, right? Oh, I
Hmm.
just had a social interaction
Yeah,
of this
with
nature,
a lot of people.
right? And it worked well. And so it's a really
Yeah.
cool way to say, oh my gosh, it worked well. And it wouldn't have happened without me
Yeah.
interacting with all of these participants and all of these.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
Thank you. I've had a lot of fun. We had the first instructor, the first one I did, I think was in November, and he used an example of, I can't remember what the deep dive tech topic was. This is SAP for S/4HANA. That's the subject matter in different types of solutions. And he used a pizza as an example of something that was made or custom made or made outside or you made. And when we came back from break, I said to him, "How was your pizza?" And everybody laughed because nobody expected me to apply what his example was after our lunch break. And it was just kind of cute. But anyway, I enjoy this. And you're right, it is a remote kind of interaction that is, in a way, I'm applying some creativity to it. And I know most moderators will just read the script. They won't ask for fun facts, and they'll just say, and now here's the instructor, let's go. And it's very matter of fact. I try to make people feel good about being there. So anyway, enough about me. It's just my show, that's all. Thank you for that. I appreciate your feedback. Now, let's do a couple more. What do you eat for breakfast that powers your day, or do you believe in breakfast? What do you got?
I usually don't eat breakfast.
Do you drink coffee? Anything? Coffee, tea, water,
I
juice?
will, I will, yeah, absolutely. I love coffee.
Tell me
But
about
I
coffee. Brewed or instant, decaf, homemade, Starbucks, latte, espresso, cappuccino, what?
so there isn't a specific thing. I have my machine at home
Mm-hmm.
that I love very much,
A fancy
and it
one or a
does.
basic one?
It's a fancy one.
Okay,
It's
you
one of
want to
those
mention it?
things. It's a Jura Z8.
Okay.
It's a Swiss machine that does like 22 types of different drinks that you just
Nice.
click a button, and it will make you
I'll
a
be there
cappuccino or a
tomorrow.
flat. Please. Um, and so it's just a question of whether I feel like a milk drink or not. If I do a milk drink, then I will click the flat white button twice and I will be very happy with it.
Nice.
If it's something even fancier, then I will default to a cap. But probably the most common drink I drink at home is that this machine makes a fabulous Americano.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take the Americano and I put a little bit of whipped cream on top.
Ooh, wait a minute. Whipped cream out of a ready whip can or homemade whipped cream?
Ready Whip, zero sugar Ready Whip, the purple cans.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and the sad part is, or funny part, or however you want to describe it, is the dogs know this, and of course they all want some too. So it's become like when they hear the sound of the machine, they all come around and they sit there patiently, and they're hoping that I'm going to make the version of the drink that will result with them getting little tidbits of Ready Whip too.
That is lovely. You put a little bit on their nose and go boop,
They don't. Initially, I could. Now they're like, "Whoop!"
boop. Oh, we got emotional there. Okay.
Yeah, they just
You're
jump and
back.
grab it, right?
That's
So yeah,
funny.
yeah,
I have my power shake in the morning is about 6 ounces of whatever I feel like. It's either 1% or whole milk into one of those personalized Hamilton Beach blenders, the kind that you push
yep,
the pulse button. They don't have an offer on, and it holds about 12 ounces. So it's just one for one person. And I'll add a banana. Buy 9 to 12 bananas a week because I always want to make sure. And I try to get them a little on the green side. And sometimes I get them too ripe, and sometimes I get them not ripe enough. And if they're not ripe enough, they leave an aftertaste all day in your mouth like chalk. And it bothers your throat. So I have to be very careful how I buy my bananas. A banana and a couple of frozen sliced strawberries, unsweetened, and then a squirt of raw agave syrup. It's organic and instead of sugar, and it comes in a bottle. It looks like maple syrup, but it's very liquid. And once in a while, I'll cheat and put a little bit of homemade vanilla ice cream. That's a Breyer's brand. I love it. Homemade vanilla, they call it. Just a little bit. And sometimes I'll just take a couple taps out of a box of cocoa, unsweetened cocoa. So it's a cocoa strawberry banana. And I'll pulse it, and the frozen strawberries are take place of ice cubes so that they don't get watered down. It's the fruit. So I'll pulse it a whole bunch of times until it looks really homogenized, and I take the little top off, rinse it out, and I put in a reusable plastic straw. Thank you very much. I heard a late night host recently say that the pipe cleaner industry has been renovated, re-enlivened, reawakened because we use those pipe cleaners for those straws. So I keep one very long when you put it in the straw, and it cleans out all the residue from the fruit. Anyway, and that's my power shake every morning, and I can't do caffeine anymore, Barak, which makes me sad because I love a good cup of coffee. And if I'm even near decaf coffee, you'll be scraping me off the ceiling. There's just that a little bit of caffeine, and this is a chamomile. There's a chamomile bag in this, and I will refill it 2 or 3 times, put it in the fridge, and let it be just cool water flavored like chamomile after the hot tea is done. So that's what I
yeah. That's
do.
a
So I'm
yeah. You
still coming.
mentioned.
I'm still coming to your house for the coffee machine. That sounds good. Let's do one more of those.
Well, hold
Okay.
on, hold on. Now I
Yeah,
have to
yeah, yeah,
tell you something else because you mentioned cocoa. So yeah,
yeah.
sometimes I
Go ahead.
do want to sweeten things, but I
Yep.
actually have discovered, and it's like this small company up in Santa Rosa, Living Ratio, I think is what they're called, but they sell these packs of, I kid you not, it's mushroom powder.
I've heard of that.
But it is insanely good. Like it is tastes like chocolate. It feels like chocolate. It's like a like you're getting cocoa, but it's just
No,
mushrooms.
no,
And
no.
I will take a little spoon of that and I will put it in my flat white and it is mind-blowingly good. So, and it's super healthy too.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll add ginger to a couple of shakes of ginger to. We're supposed to reduce swelling and edema and all that good stuff. We won't talk about that. Interesting. Okay, I just got a call from Spielberg and Shonda Rhimes and Francis Ford Coppola, and they want to make a movie about you, and they want to know what would the
Oh,
movie be called, and
oh,
who would play you? Who would play you? Which
oh,
director would you pick? Shonda Rhimes would be very chatty, 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 soap opera, drama. Um, Spielberg could be almost anything, or James Cameron, and Coppola could be an epic. So, which director would you pick, and what would you call the movie, and who would play you? Real
oh
simple
goodness.
simple
No, come on,
questions.
it's that's easy. I I don't you're putting me on the spot like that. That's
Uh,
hard. I mean, Spielberg is a hero, right?
yeah. Mhm.
So I would probably say just for the chance of being on set with him, at that point, I don't care what the movie looks like. Um,
But it's your
um,
movie. What would you
I
call it?
know.
Would you call it the name of your book, or would you call it
Well,
Barack
so
Goes to
there's a
Technion, or Barack Makes Coffee, or what would you call it?
so there's I'm gonna I hope this is a little bit of a downer
That's
sounds like,
okay.
but it not really is.
That's okay.
So there's a memoir I've been writing, a midlife
Hmm.
memoir, and there's a title to that memoir. And if I ever finish it, and if it ever gets published, which are two different things, but I'll definitely finish it. But whether it gets published is a different story because the industry is very hard.
Yep.
But the title of the memoir is Worthless.
Ooh.
That's my
Okay.
lifelong struggle,
Okay.
and that should probably be the title of any sort of biopic about
Mm.
me.
Mm. And who would play you?
Dear me. I don't even think I know most of the actors out there. I'm not very big on celebrity culture.
Well,
And so,
let's say he was still alive. Would you want John Wayne to play you, a figure from the West? Would you want Humphrey Bogart to play you,
oh
Rick
God,
Blaine and
I love
Casablanca?
Bogart. Are you
Okay, I hit
kidding
a
me?
note there. Would you want Bogey to play you?
Oh my God. Yes, sure. Yes, that would
Errol
be
Flynn,
amazing.
the
That would be
swashbuckler? Would
amazing.
you?
No, it would be Bogart, of course.
See, see
Yeah.
how we collaborated. So when it comes time and Spielberg calls you, you tell him to call Bonnie D, and I'll help him pick your. Yeah, yeah. My movie would probably be a musical comedy, and it would feature music by a lot of some of the people I mentioned to you in my Saucy Dame songs. I would switch between having Reba McEntire and Maureen
Ooh.
O'Hara, who's no longer around, and Rita Hayworth, the famous redheads, and Lucille Ball. Three of those are not even alive anymore. Play me, and it would be a musical comedy, and it would be called Read My Lips, starring
Oh,
Red, something like that, and that would be it. What do you think? You think
I
that
think
would
I think
rock?
it's great. I would absolutely go see it.
I I'll make sure I reserve tickets in the
Yeah,
front row for
please.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
I want opening night.
And one more question before we go into our wacky say what stories. Okay, question is there one thing you have bought or made for yourself in your memorable lifetime that's still very much going on that brought you or is bringing you the most joy? Something you did for yourself, not a gift for your house or your spouse or your kids, something that you did just for yourself that you look at it and you say, damn, that's good. That makes me happy. Anything could be very simple.
So this is I mean, I want to say there's always things, right? I mean, I'll tell you a couple. One of them is when I was a teenager, and also not particularly, not on the right side of the tracks in many ways. Um, I got introduced to D&D, and I
You
had a
have to tell
friend.
people it's Dungeons and
Oh,
Dragons so they
Dungeons and
know.
Dragons.
Yes,
I'm very
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
And I had a classmate who was from America, right, from here, and he brought with him the rule books for Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, getting the rule books for D&D back in the day in Israel, not a simple thing at all. And even if you could somehow source them, the cost would have been astronomical. And so I borrowed his books one night. I basically took my mom's key card. I snuck into the university, like area where they it had all the copiers and all that stuff. And I spent like until late hours in the night, until very early in the morning, photocopying the rule books, and I still have them. And I have those photocopied rule books of those from that time. I carried them with me from across the world. And every time I look at them, it gives me such internal joy of like as a kid, how the
Mm.
way that I found to basically steal. I mean, at the end of the day, but it
Borrowed. You
meant so
borrowed.
much. I
Flattery.
bought them as soon as I could afford them and was able to find them, right? As when I bought the originals. But back in the day, that brought me a lot of joy. The other one is one I did recently, but I really do love, and I did it in conjunction with my book. So this it's going to sound like a promotion, but it's not. I just thought it was a really cool thing, and so I ended up doing it. And it's creative, right? And I decided I'll make like a few of these to hand out to anybody who might come to a book signing or something. But
Hold it up. Let's see.
it's a little baggy with the name, kind of like the
How
logo on
sweet.
it. And then when you open
Yeah.
it, and this means if you read the book, it will mean a lot more to you. But there's two
Okay.
things inside,
Cracking
and
the crystal.
the one of them is a cracked yellow and blue crystal.
Oh my
So
goodness.
and I really wanted to source an imperfect one because
Yeah.
the cracks important, and then and a little note from me, right? And I don't know if you can read it.
I can. May this
Oh,
token,
sorry.
hold it. Let me see. May this token of the crack. Oh, perfect. May this token of the crack in the crystal remind you of your own inner spark, Barak E. That is beautiful.
And so there's like some limited number, very limited number of these in existence, and
That is
I do love
lovely.
them. It's something that does bring me joy, and it brings me joy to give it to somebody, right?
That is
So
absolutely lovely. Wow. Well, mine is very simple. I bought a pair of red short boots with a zipper up the inside that are red on red suede fabric and like a hard suede. And those are my drummer boots. And I wear them. I was the drummer and a co-drummer and then drummer
oh,
and MC for a Motown band in Durham, North Carolina when I lived there, a
that's so cool.
12-piece band. Yeah. And thank you. And I now wear them to the supermarket, to the doctor's office, when I go anywhere, a hairdresser. And there's usually one person will say, those boots are really cute. And I'll say, thank you. And they make people smile. And they make me smile too. I like them so much that I bought a second pair. And then they were discontinued. I couldn't find them. So I went on various resale sites for clothing, Poshmark and some others, and I found them in brocades. I found them in orange, shiny, with green and silver colors on them, and blue brocade and all kinds of colors. So I bought about 5 pairs, which sit on my shelf in my special closet. So I look at them and I said, those are really cool. But the red ones, those are mine. And that's one of the coolest things I bought for myself that I really, really, really love. So just something simple, but it just makes me happy. I put on my boots. I'm going out in the world, and I don't do that too often anymore. I'm going out in the world. By the way, are you familiar with the term digital native? Do you remember when that
Yes.
was?
Yeah.
Okay. The gentleman who coined that term is named Mark, M-A-R-C Prensky. He grew up in Queens, New York. He was on my Read My Lips show the other night.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and he coined that term back in, I guess it was it the 90s maybe? And look up digital native in quotes on Wikipedia and you'll see his name. So I think he's going to do maybe he'll come on this show too. So I figured you're one of the few people who
Well,
would know what that means. So do you
well,
have some
not only that, but back in the very early aughts, I founded it failed miserably, but I founded a small company called Digital Immigrant, which was and that's a
Oh,
term
uh-huh.
perhaps you could say I coined, but the idea there was to describe folks like me who straddle the technology shifts, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
started in a low tech world and transitioned into the high tech world.
Yep. Well, I will tell you that I was hired. I had a funny job experience. I was working on the West Coast in Oregon as a programmer analyst, and then I came back to New York, and I was hired as a programmer as well. But I took the wrong job. We won't go into the miserable experience, but they basically made sure all my programs aborted in the computer room. They made sure everything was out of order, everything was tanked, and I went looking for a job. And I took another job, but while I was getting ready to go to this new position, which was at the Daily News as a programmer in Manhattan, a company on Long Island, a bank, a correspondent bank, contacted me through a headhunter I had used when I was on the West Coast in Eugene. And she said, I've got a job for you. I said, wait, I just accepted the deal. She said, no, get in your car. I said, I can't get in my car. There's snow on the ground. I drive a sports car. I'm not going out east on the Long Island Expressway, and I'm running a fever of 101. I'm not going. She said, bring a box of Kleenex, get in your damn car, and go to this interview. Anyway, long story short, they were hiring me as an assembler programmer. And I said to them, but I don't do assembler. I do PL1, I do COBOL. I don't want to do BASIC. I don't want to do Fortran. I don't do those. And the comment was, do you have a checkbook? And I said, yes. Why? And they said, good, you know enough about banking. We're creating a special position for you. And the position was systems liaison. I said, what is that? They said, you speak two languages we value here. One is computer ease, the other is English. And you are going to sit on the Long Island in the Long Island office and talk to the programmers. Then you're going to go to the Manhattan headquarters of the correspondent bank and you're going to talk to the different departments. Correspondent does back office services for savings banks. They serviced all the savings banks in New York. You're going to go talk to the departments on what kind of reporting they need, what kind of solutions they need. Then you're going to come back to the Long Island office and you're going to translate those into what the computer programmers need to write the code. I'm not going to write the code. I'm going to do that. So I got a real kick out of that. But they're the ones who made me go from mainframe to Macintosh. And you talk about digital immigrant. And I said, what are you talking about? They said, I said, this is a little box that's early Mac, little box sits on the desk with this thing, a mouse. I said, you're insulting me. I worked on big mainframe computers, IBM 4341, Xerox Sigma 6CP5. I did big programs. I did for in the entire state of Oregon. I worked with the high schools and I worked with the community colleges. How can you make me do this? I had to learn that digital. You just used a word. It wasn't digital divide. You used a word
Digital,
on
the
the
digital immigrant?
no, used a word about digital, the shift, the shift from two
Oh,
different. That's what sparked the story. So anyway, I became a marketing director for the bank, and one day they said to me, we need a turnkey system programmed and we're firing our contract programmer. Would you please bring your COBOL handbook in and would you code it? So I had a Mac on one side of my desk. I had a dumb terminal on the other side. I brought my handbook and they said, this is a turnkey banking system and you are now the programmer for the system. So I was doing two. So I was talking to a Mac and talking to basically to the mainframe at the bank. And it was quite an interesting ride, Barak, because I was speaking to two completely different protocols, two completely different systems, and I loved every minute of it. So,
I, I, I honestly, I just want to podcast or not, this thing we're doing right now. I just want to chat more about those times because
I know you're going to come back for part two. Don't worry, I'm going to invite
do
you
you
back for
remember
part two.
you mentioned dumb terminals. I don't even you probably remember these because I worked on those and there was like the whole thing about they would say, if your screen started flickering, I don't you probably remember this, right? Just lift. This was literally the recommendation. The technology recommendation was like lift it a couple of centimeters off the table and let it drop so that things the thing the
I
chips
don't
or whatever
remember that.
yeah,
But I
that's
will
great.
tell you, they said to me, we want you to we were launching a brand new banking division for this turnkey bank system. And they said to me, you're going to design the division. You're going to create a launch party. You're going to go work with an advertising agency, create a video, and you're going to create a newsletter for the banking presidents. And I said, what am I going to do that with? So they said, there's this thing called PageMaker. Now, anybody who's alive now will know
Yeah.
what Quark Express is, but PageMaker was the grandma or the grandpa of Quark Express. And I said, what am I going to do? And I said, okay, here's the deal. I was dating somebody who owned one of the biggest advertising agencies on Long Island. I said, you're going to teach me how to do a layout for a newsletter. He said, okay. And then I said to the bank, rent me a Mac for 1 month. And they rented me a little Mac and I brought it home. And every night when I put my kids to bed, I sat up till 2 or 3 in the morning and learned PageMaker, WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I learned layout. I learned fonts. I learned everything. I cried a lot. And when the month was over, I gave the rented Mac back. I went back to work where they had a Mac for me, and I designed a newsletter and wrote it for the banking presidents and the C-suite of all the savings banks of New York State. And I did the launch event, and I did an event for all the banking presidents. And I figured that out, Barak. I did not know any of this.
I love this.
Just created and created and
There
created.
wasn't there wasn't somebody there wasn't an Uncle Google you could go and ask questions. Those
No,
were the days you
no.
had to figure it out
Yes,
because there was nowhere
yes.
to find information.
Absolutely. And I had a wacky wordie on the back page where I don't know, made up words or something like that. And I drew in PageMaker, I drew the lines of the box like a crossword puzzle or something. I did that for Chase Manhattan Bank too. It was very interesting. Anyway, it's been quite a
Well,
ride. I'll say that. Let's go to our stories because we're going on and on here. You are definitely invited back for a part two. So we can save some stories,
I
but
just
I
had
can see.
another great story for you, but yes,
Let's
keep
save
going.
that for part two. You'll come back in a couple weeks, okay?
All
Now,
right.
let me stop you're going to screen share? Do you have something you want to share? Or do you just want to
Oh,
talk?
is this the news stories? I
The news
have
stories. Yep.
one of them. The one I'm going to start with
Go ahead. You can share.
I just need my
I'm going to
little.
share too.
So, all right. The first one is only the one that I'm going to share a thing on, and it is this, and then I will tell you what this is.
Okay. Ooh, what is this?
It looks cute, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the result of a bioscience company basically they're trying to recreate some historical animals, and on their path they took some genes from the woolly mammoth
Yeah.
and modified the DNA of a mouse and created
No.
a woolly mouse.
No. This
Welcome
this
to
is this is an organism that's alive, this thing I'm looking at?
this thing is a woolly mouse. It's a real thing. And I think
I
it's
was gonna
utterly
say it
cute.
looks like Rod Stewart's hair before he goes on stage. I'm
Uh,
sorry.
yep. So there you go. Welcome to the woolly mouse. I think
And
it's just
where were these scientists? Where was this done? Do you know?
it's in I think it's in Texas actually. The company is called Colossal Biosciences, and you can look
That's
it up.
a riot. Well, I'm going to share one now, and I have a visual as well. So let me share my screen here. Let's do the first screen. Got a lot of options here. Okay, this is Daylight Savings Time weekend, right?
Hmm.
Okay, I found a story. Where did I find this? New York City clocks. Today we'll look at how the spring forward time changes this weekend happens with some of New York's most famous clocks. And I won't go through the whole article, but this is the director of engineering at the New York Edition Hotel with equipment that controls one of the big clocks on the face of the hotel, the former Metropolitan Life Insurance Company building. And they say behind certain rooms, there are rooms in a hotel that sell for rent for $1,331 a night. Okay, that's a little out of my budget range. I don't know about yours. On East 24th Street in Manhattan, guests are not given a key to the door at the end of the room. Okay, the room is home to the inner workings of one of New York City's most famous clocks in what was originally the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. An automated mechanism is set to move the hands from 2 to 3 a.m. No longer does a night watchman do the job. Anyway,
Oh,
like the MetLife clock, your smartphone, smartwatch, and that will adjust by themselves. So this was just an example that there are clocks that have been programmed, but they also have people who are there to help them if they need it. An automated clock will change the clock that looks down on Park Avenue from above the 42nd Street face of Grand Central Terminal. It's tied to a modular clock synchronization unit that brings the clocks in Grand Central in line with U.S. Naval Observatory. 51 clocks, 26 are digital, and 25 are analog with hands. I thought you would get a kick out of that.
that is really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
but yeah, I think young people just won't be able to even understand how cool
I
this
know.
is because it's what? What
Well,
do you mean? There's all this analog stuff.
listen, I had to figure out how to change the clock on my stove, and it's not easy. You start out pushing the zero underneath the settings and holding it, and then the clock flashes, and then you set on the keypad the numbers, and then you go to the start button, which you would do for starting the oven or starting something else. You push start, and that locks the time in. That's not intuitive. So, what's your second story?
Second story. So I will share the news stories, but I think it's just fascinating in this day and age. It's this one, very recent. So basically, we're talking about AI. This is an actual, and there's videos in this story and what have you. But basically, an AI agent was calling a hotel to set up, like, book a wedding, and was talking to another AI agent, and the AI agents realized, they basically clarified, oh my God, you're an AI agent, I'm an AI agent. Okay, how about we talk without all this nonsense of having to use English, right? And yeah, and they basically switched into Gibber Talk, whatever. It's basically an audio. It's a way to exchange a lot of information very rapidly with audio, a little bit like your AOL thing that you
Yeah.
talked about. Remember those
Yeah.
times?
Uh-huh.
And they basically, the whole conversation then takes place that way. They're exchanging all the information, and you can, if you go to this news story or you look it up, there's like the recording of the whole thing. You can literally kind of see it happen, and that's the sound of two AIs talking to each other. I thought it was a fascinating story.
I love it. I do. Thank you very much. I've got another one when you're done sharing. There we go. We keep changing our positions here on my Zoom screen. So let me go back here to share. And I got to get this up here. No, I don't want messages. I want share. Let me share the desktop again. And here we go. Second story. Have you ever heard of the Wednesday waffle?
No?
Nothing to do with the toaster. The internet has a big appetite for trends, and this one is called the Wednesday waffle. No breakfast food is involved. Waffle is an Australian term, slang, that means to chat at length about nothing in particular. I think you and I are doing the Friday waffle. In non-viral, now viral TikTok, if I could read, Zach Perez describes it as the ritual of sending 1 or 2 minute videos to a group of friends about what's happening in your life on Wednesday. The idea is to keep a thread of contact in a way that's more personal than texts, but less regimented than a call. Since TikTok made the rounds about a year ago, friends worldwide have started sending waffles. Sounds almost like Vine, doesn't it? And the weekly ritual even inspired an app to encourage people to stay in touch with loved ones, no matter the physical distance. I feel like we're constantly catching up, one of his friends said. So there you go. It's called the Wednesday waffle. I'm going to
I
look it up.
love it.
Should we send
I
each other waffle messages? You want to do
Yeah, I
that?
mean, I just have to institute like something like that,
I
right?
think we do.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's your
No.
next one?
So the last one that I came up, this is something that only trends on particular corners of Reddit, but where it does in a big way, and I need to give a little bit of a lead in. One of my very favorite video gaming series is Civilization, which is now in its
Mm-hmm.
seventh iteration, and which was just released. And Civ, in the last several iterations, has sort of opened itself up for the modding community. This is all very modern stuff for old people like me,
Stop.
and it's just right. But
Stop. Seasoned.
but
You're not old, you're seasoned.
but the idea that you're basically opening your game up to external independent people who can change it, who can,
Mm-hmm.
so they're called modders. If you never heard the
How do you
term,
spell
people who
that? How
listen,
do you spell that?
Modders,
That's what it
modders.
sounded like. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
they're modifiers, right?
Okay.
And you open the game code, and then they can change the game code to make the game different. And one of the most famous modder for Civilization calls himself by the handle Sukritact. I don't know what his real name is.
Mm-hmm.
And the news that I
Ghostbuster.
wanted to say, because it's wacky and it's from the corner of the
Yeah.
world, but very important to people who love this game, and there's many millions of us around the world, is that Fair Access, the publisher for Civilization, just announced, and this is a couple of days ago, that they're hiring him to be on their team. And in a way, I love that story because you're talking about sort of closing of a cycle, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hey, here is like a thing, let's open it, see what you all can do. And then this is a person that's invested literally years, many years, over a decade of their life in improving everybody's life with
Mm-hmm.
his mods, there's his changes to the game engine, and eventually the publisher is like, you know what? We want you in-house. So it was a great little thing because I don't think anybody's, unless you're like a CEO of a Fortune 500 or something where, your stuff makes news. This thing made news. It became this explosive news story in that little civilization quarter of Reddit, right? And with
Cool.
hundreds of people getting excited and what have you.
Isn't that
So
nice? Isn't that nice that hundreds of people can get excited about something that's
somebody got
positive?
hired, got her
Yeah.
hired for a job, right?
No,
It's
no,
just it's
no
so
comment, no
cool.
comment. I'm going to share I have three little stories for you. I'll see if I can do all three of them here. And one is, do you know when the first text message was sent? It's right
Before
here on the
going, well,
screen.
I know, but without my glasses,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't see it
without,
anyway.
yeah,
I would imagine it's probably something in the 50s, but I may be wrong.
it was 1992.
Oh, 92. Okay.
In 92, when rotary phones could still be found in some households, 22-year-old engineer Neil Papworth made history by pressing send on a now ubiquitous form of communication. He used his computer and the Vodafone network to transmit the world's first SMS, two simple words, to a colleague's mobile phone. He worked for a now defunct services company that was developing a messaging service, and the big moment was merely part of a day's work. It didn't feel momentous at all. I had no idea the first text was going to snowball eventually into this thing we call texting today. Okay? The following year, Nokia released the first cell phone with SMS capability, and I don't have what the actual word was. Oh, used for say, I don't have what the actual two words were. Two
Well,
simple
if you
words.
click on it, it will tell you
Yeah,
what
I
it is.
know. I wasn't going to do that. So let's see. What is this today in history? Blah, 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 blah. I'm looking. For me, it was just getting my job done. I received a call from a Christmas party. The outgoing message was a success.
It's
Blah, blah,
probably
blah.
Hello World or something like that, which is
It doesn't say even in the beginning of, oh, Merry Christmas. Of
oh,
course. Merry Christmas. Of course, of course, of course. Okay,
oh Mary, oh Mary, Mary.
Oh, Mary, Mary. Okay, let me go back. I have another one for you. I should have put that in there. Have you used this emoji? It's a
Yes.
face with rolling eyes. It was
Yep.
added in 2015. It's 10 years old, added to the emoji. Do you know there's an Emojipedia? Are you aware of
Yes,
that?
I am
I,
aware.
oh, you are definitely. And do you know why your jacket is called a blazer if you own one?
No.
Okay. Well, okay. We know that Jim Carrey's character in Dumb and Dumber wore one. The first blazer was associated with a rowing sport in 19th century England. Jack Carlson authored Rowing Blazers. The first blazers were meant to be worn in boats by English rowers at Oxford and Cambridge, loose fitting like a modern windbreaker to keep the rowers warm when they were chilling out and chilling training sessions and early mornings. It was the scarlet jackets wore. I wish I had a picture of this. The Lady Margaret Boat Club at St. John's College had a scarlet jacket and they called them blazers. Soon other clubs, croquet, rugby, soccer, of course, football, wanted their own jackets. And by the 1880s, jackets in any color were being called blazers. And now they're just a flannel jacket that Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Cornell use. Is that cool?
That's awesome. And as you were going through this, I was reminded of something that I want to share back along the same kind of like
Yeah,
along the
go
same
ahead.
lines
Go
of
ahead.
origin. But that's really neat. I love these things where you get like the origin of stuff, etymology of
Yeah.
words, and it's so much fun.
I
All
get a
right.
bunch of newsletters that give me links to all of these stories, and I mine them every day when they come in. You know what I do? I'll highlight the story, I'll send it back to my personal email, and I'll write on the subject line for TOO Saucy. And then I know to go back in, get that article, put it in a Word document, and put it in my library. I've got about at least 50 articles I've since I started the show. What were you going to say before we end? We're going to close
Because
things off.
I literally just learned this, and
Yes.
some people know this, but I didn't, and I'm now considering the greatest piece of sports gaslighting in history.
Okay.
So, the origin of the word soccer, which Americans call football, do you know where
Yes.
that comes from?
No.
Okay, because the Brits are, well, they're gonna be, and I just came back from England. If you use the word soccer, they're gonna like look down on you, right? It's
Oh.
like it's the wrong word. Why aren't you
Hmm.
calling it football? It's like It's football, right? Use a ball with a foot. What is American football? You should call it hand egg, right? Because you're using your hands and you're holding an egg, right? So turns out that it's the Brits themselves that came up with the word soccer. And this is
Really?
because, yes, because when the game was invented, they wanted to distinguish this kind of football, right, from rugby football. And
Oh,
so they called it association football. And then it got shortened in the slang to a soccer. And so Americans adopted the word soccer and started using it. The Australians still use it too, right? And then the Brits
yeah.
at some point kind of rolled it back and said, no, 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 it's actually football, and why are you using this word that we invented? And in a way, I'm like, how
What?
dare you?
How dare you? That's a riot. Soccer from association.
And association football, yeah,
Isn't
that's where
that
it comes from.
funny?
Yep,
Barak, it has been just lovely talking to you. Would you like to come
absolutely.
back and do a part
Yeah,
two in a couple weeks? I'll
absolutely. This
I'll
was
send you
amazing.
a date. Yeah, bring a few more songs and some new. I'll come up with some new topics for us to discuss, and bring three more articles. I love the articles you brought. You get it. You know what I'm looking for.
Oh, thank you.
Off the beaten path, and I love our swapping our technology stories. Thank you very much.
There's so much. There's so much we can probably talk about from
I
those
don't
those
have a lot of
days.
people to talk to this stuff about. So listen, I'm going to put the music on. Let me get my music up, and we're going to then we're going to stick around and talk for just a second. And I've got a webinar I'm going to go to, so let me get the volume up here. And again, I want to thank Serge Hoffman, who wrote the music and sings the song I wrote the lyrics for. It was actually a poem for So You Want to Be. So here we go. We're going to play the music now, and let me get my F10 up, and let's go out with this song.
So you wanna be.
Come on, show me your moves.
Well, now I can't hear the music.
Can you hear it? Oh, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. You know what I got to do? I got to go back to share. I knew I forgot something, my dear. Okay, here we go. Let's start it again. Let's bring it back, and we're going to do it. So many things to do when you're engineering your own show. Here we go. There we go. Now you can dance. Oh, look at him.
So you wanna be.
BE, those are your initials.
Hanging with the ink and set. Looking real.
Looking real cool and fine.
Casting you faking it.
Casting your net.
So you wanna be.
Here we go. Drum roll. Bop, 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 bop.
Lonely girl.
Thank you, Serge Hoffman. Thank you to Barak E. Mr. Engel, it has been absolutely a delight getting to know you more, and we will do this again in a couple weeks. Bonnie D signing off. Don't go away, Barak. Bye to LinkedIn. All of the streaming work. Bye to Facebook, Twitter.